friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley Ariana, joined by my wonderful friend and football expert, Tom Jensen. Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
Hi, Ashley. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing really good. It's been super sunny in the Bay Area the last
Cool.
couple days, last week. I went up and saw my dad and my sister this weekend. Got to see some friends. It was nice to go to Sonoma County and see some people and stuff like that. I'd been putting it off for a little bit, and it felt really, I love it felt really good in my heart and also in my body with all the sunshine and everything. So
so your rejuvenated heart and soul.
Yeah,
that's a great thing. Yeah, it's
Although
always great to reconnect with family.
Yeah, although I'm gonna be on the 49ers injured list. I don't know. It could have been a lot of things. I did like a pretty hard, like hill run workout. Like I was doing like sprints, but like on a hill. So that could have been it, but I didn't feel anything after that. But then I went and I was hanging out with my little sister and we just like roughhouse and stuff. And at one point I was going to go hang out with my dad. And so I was trying to leave and then totally like understandably she didn't want me to leave, so she was like, okay, one more time, like we're gonna go one more round, and she tried to throw me into the pool, but I was like, I can't be wet. I'm supposed to go hang out with my dad. I can't be like cold and wet, and also I need to go right now. And she's a little bit bigger than me, so she was putting all of her might into putting me in the pool. So I was trying to I was in the trenches, Tom. It was like offensive lineman. I'm planting my feet in the ground, pushing. And then, I felt like a weird pain in my calf, and it's been clenching up and hurting for like 24 hours now. So I feel what the offensive linemen and D tackles feel.
You locked up your calves.
Dude, it's terrifying. Being a football player must be insane. Like when you think about running, I feel like I always think of it from the perspective of like a running back or a wide receiver, because there's just people, literally human beings, big, bulky, fast, scary human beings like flying into you. That's terrifying. But I had never thought it's very scary when you're trying to go this way and someone bigger, stronger, and tougher is putting all their might into, like, it's very
How do you stop that? I don't know. I marvel at what they do. It's amazing that these are the best athletes in the world.
Yeah. So anyways, I feel the 49ers injury pain. And, part of this is probably because I'm getting a little bit older, putting a lot of stress on my joints, like I said, with my workout, and then trying to mess around. So, the 49ers should learn from our previous streams where we've said that they need to get younger and faster and healthier. And they should learn from my injury today and try to attempt to get younger and faster and healthier. But instead, today, on the first day of free agency, tampering period, all that, teams all around the NFL are making moves, 49ers being one of them. I think we have to start it off with like probably the biggest move for the 49ers today. And that is they signed wide receiver Mike Evans from the Buccaneers. I think Mike Evans is a future Hall of Famer. He is
no doubt.
Every year except for this last year, he's had 1,000-yard receiving season. Incredible player. My only issue is that he's going to be 33 in August. He's 32 right now. So before the season starts, by game 1, he's going to be 33. It was apparently a 3-year deal. Now, obviously, we have to look into the guarantees on that. It sounds like maybe they're thinking it's more of a 2-year deal. From I heard Matt Mayoko going over it, and he said that it was spread out over 3 years for cap reasons. But yeah, I guess I'm going to get your opinion first, because you hear the name Mike Evans. It's a splash name, and I feel like maybe it gets fans excited. Is he better than Juwan Jennings? Yeah, yes. I think so. Definitely. He's not like I've heard a lot of people being like, well, the money they saved on from Brandon Ayuk by getting that money back, they can give to Mike Evans. I don't think Mike Evans is going to be at the level that they were hoping Brandon Ayuk would be when they gave him that deal. And this is solely because of age. He missed, I think, 8 games last year, or maybe he only played 8 games last year.
Yeah, he played 8. He missed 9.
Yeah, so he's struggled. And by the way, of those 8 that he played, I think he left like 2 of them in the middle of the game. So he's struggled with injuries, especially last year. But on the later half of his career, he's really struggled with injuries. Hamstrings injuries is what really plagued him last year. And like I said, going to be 33 at the start of the season, 3-year deal. I mean, that's what do you think of this? You're an expert. Tell me your initial reaction, and we'll get into it more.
Okay. I think he helps them immediately, but the problem is that this is a now move. That what you want is a move that builds your team for the future in free agency, and they're not doing that.
Yeah.
And I think that ties back to Shanahan and Lynch don't have extensions, so they're in now mode, and therefore they sign Mike Evans, a now player. I think that all connects. And he can help them, especially in the red zone, because they're not going to have Kittle to start the year next year. They're going to need a red zone threat. Mike Evans provides that. They also need a bigger target for Brock to lock in on since he's small. So Brock can see that. One of the things that we kind of lose sight of with Mike Evans is he's huge. He's 6'5", 230. He's a big guy. And that helps in contested catches, in fades, back shoulder fade catches. He'll just go get jump balls. And that's something they're going to need with Purdy. But they're not going to be able to use him as effectively as they did in Tampa in terms of go routes and going deep as often as they did with Baker. They're not going to be able to do that with Brock. But you can still use him because Evans is so good. He's high IQ, one of the best route runners in the league, incredible hands. He's got a 4% drop rate career. So he rarely drops the ball.
Which we don't love.
And you need that. And you've got somebody that competes for balls. And because he's so big, he's a good blocker. So he checks all of the boxes that Kyle wants checked. The only thing that the fans are going to look at is 33 coming off a season where he only played half the games. And I don't blame the fans for worrying about that and saying, we're spending $20 million on this guy. What are we actually going to get?
Yeah.
So, we don't know. But if he's healthy, he helps a lot. And one of the other factors that's not normally discussed, Leonard Hankerson isn't necessarily the best wide receiver coach. Now you're adding Mike Evans. He basically becomes the wide receiver coach. He's going to help the young guys develop.
Definitely.
He'll accelerate their development just by, imparting the wisdom that he's had of a Hall of Fame career. So there's a lot of ways that Evans helps. It's just that how often is he going to help given the hamstrings, given the injuries, given the age, given the substation, given the training staff and the training room? It's a lot. So if they get him healthy and he plays at least, say, 12, 14 games, then that's a good signing for the next 2 years. And you figure the third year is probably just a void year for cap reasons.
Yeah.
So really, it's a 2-year front-loaded deal that's got a lot of incentives. That's how, because they say he can earn up to 60. So that tells me that there's plenty of incentives in this on stats and games played and that sort of thing. But if he can meet those incentives, he's a good signing for them. It's just that it's a now move because that's what Shanahan and Lynch are into right now. We don't have an extension, so we're just going to optimize now. And the fans, that's the last thing you want to hear. You want to hear, we're going after a young guy with speed that's going to help us long term.
Yeah.
Instead, no. So, that's, I get that objection, and I agree with that. That, this is now, they need future, they need speed. Now, where's the speed going to come from on this team?
Yeah. If the thing is, when he came back from his hamstring injury last year, he honestly didn't look terrible in the last couple games that he played. Like when he's not injured, I feel like he doesn't show a ton of decline. The year before that, he still had 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
So it's not like when he's able to play, that his play seems super affected by his age. It's just the older you get, the more easily your body's going to wear down. And the 49ers already have a history of, I mean, Ricky Pearsall's relatively a young guy, wasn't injured much in college and is injured. So you think like, if you're not injury prone and go to the Niners and become injury prone, then if you're already struggling with injury, coming to the Niners isn't necessarily where you're going to find, an oasis of health in their worst,
Yeah, it's optimistic to think that he'll just shake this off and it's a one-off. But
yeah,
he missed a lot of games in the one season, but you look at his career and he didn't. And his game really isn't that affected by age.
Yeah.
Because his game is his hands, his route running, his IQ, and his size. And it doesn't really depend on speed. So that aspect of it, you don't really need to worry that he's 33, he's lost some tread in the tire. That's not how he plays receiver anyway.
Something that I found kind of interesting is the last deal that Mike Evans signed with the Buccaneers, he took less to stay with the Bucs. And I feel like most NFL fans and probably Bucs fans felt that Mike Evans wanted to end his career as a Buccaneer. I heard something after his talk, it was kind of going on Twitter when he signed his last extension, that his wife and him, they have kids, were talking about it and basically said, we love it here. Why not just stay? Like, it's not worth the small increase in a check to like uproot our family. And then I also heard that the Bucs were willing to pay a similar deal to Mike Evans that the 49ers just gave him. So if it wasn't about money, there was a viral clip that went on last year. If you remember, Mike Evans was going back to the locker room and Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers defense they were on a streak of just giving up huge leads with their defense.
Yeah.
And the defense had allowed the opposing team to convert on like 3rd and 17 or 3rd and 18. And Mike Evans has his helmet and he's walking back in and he's hitting his helmet and going 3rd and 17, 3rd and so there is suspicion that Mike Evans was frustrated with maybe there being a lack of change with the coaching and the Buccaneers defense. But then that once again brings me to the 49ers also gave up crazy 3rd downs last year. So they're putting a lot of, if he's coming to the 49ers and it's not about money, is Mike Evans convinced that he's going to be able to, win a ring in San Francisco? Is he not worried about this defense? I know
probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I think that what Mike Evans is looking at is Kyle. He's saying that in this system with this coach, I'm going to be featured more, and I'm going to be their number one receiver because they don't have a choice. They've got to throw me the ball, especially when Kittle's going to be gone for the first half of the year or however many games George misses. So, they're going to throw to him a lot. And I think that there's probably something to the fact that Evans wanted a change in coaching, that he had Liam Cohen and then he leaves for Jacksonville. And now he says, here's the Niners taking a look and I can play for Kyle Shanahan. I'd rather do that. I think that's what drove his decision. And just an overall lack of confidence in Tampa organizationally that they're not going to get it done.
So does this move, are the 49ers, do they feel like they have their starting wide receivers? Are they going to, if you had to guess, are they making another move in free agency? Are they making a higher round draft wide receiver pick? Or are they deciding Mike Evans is your starter, your starter? Is he, as this commentator says, going to be the number one target on this offense? And then they have obviously Ricky Pearsall, but there's a lot of win healthy guys. Mike Evans, win healthy, great. Ricky Pearsall, win healthy, great. If this move means no Juwan Jennings is out now that it's the new league year officially. Brandon Ayuk is out. Who else is there? I guess Jordan Watkins, maybe he'll make an an appearance?
Yeah.
Who are the starting wide receivers? I know when he comes back and when he's healthy, George Kittle acts as a wide receiver. But yeah, does this move make you feel like they're complete at wide receiver? Do you feel confident in this wide receiver room? If they stayed healthy, I would say yes. But because there's so many questions about the health, I still am left wanting another move. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well,
And I think that that's exactly what Kyle plans, is that ideally you have Mike Evans as your X, your draft pick either in the first or the second round at wide receiver at Y, and Pearsall at Z. And that's your receivers.
Okay.
So I think that there's no way that Kyle Shanahan doesn't pick a wide receiver this year in the first or second round. Otherwise, he would spontaneously combust. Kyle being Kyle, I have to pick a receiver. So I think they're going to take a receiver early, and that's going to be a guy that can play in the slot or play wide receiver 2. So that's Omar Cooper, from Indiana, Casey Concepcion from A&M, and Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. Those would probably be the 3 guys that I would think that Kyle would be looking at. They also talked to Antonio Williams from Clemson at the Combine. So that would be the group of receivers. But I don't think there's any chance that Kyle doesn't pick a receiver no later than the second round because it's Kyle.
Okay. Well, I think if you would have told me that after they took Ricky Pearsall so high, I would feel frustrated. But at this point, I don't think they have another option, especially when I do want them to, I want them to compete now, but I want there to be a game plan for the future. And what they have now does not seem to be that. Does Mike Evans help? The Rams have added to their secondary. Obviously, the Seahawks had a phenomenal defense. Does this help? It seems like there's a lot of obviously good trenches, defensive linemen in the NFC West, but they've added a lot of our division has added a lot of cornerback and safety help. And I feel like
the Rams did. Yeah.
That put pressure on the 49ers as well.
Sure. The Rams arguably have had the most impactful offseason. You're adding McDuffie and you're adding Watson. That's the best DB duo in the league now, when they had the worst DB duo in the league last year. So that turns their biggest weakness into one of their primary strengths. Yeah. And that's Les Snead. Great GM, knows exactly what he's doing. And here's the Rams saying, okay, we are now ready for Seattle and whoever else comes our way. Yeah. Because now we've got a defensive line and we've got what we needed, DB and safety, to be able to shore up against Seattle so that JSN doesn't kill us.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a real problem for Seattle going forward, is how do you beat the Rams now, given that they finally have addressed their weakness? So they're going to be tough. Seattle, as the chat points out, Seattle lost a lot. They've already lost Kenneth Walker, Reek Woolen. They kept Rashid Shaheed today. They've kept Josh Jobe, so they didn't lose everything, but they lost some players that help. Yeah. Kobe Bryant, their safeties, underrated player, one of the best safeties in the league. Kenneth Walker, one of the best explosive play running backs in the league.
Yeah,
it's hard to compensate for that. Those are pretty big losses for them.
I was surprised that they didn't keep their running back. I thought they were going to try to make that work.
The talk here in Seattle was they were always planning to let him go. And they like Zach Charbonnet a lot.
Okay.
So he's there. And that they can still get some other running backs, be it in the draft or free agency.
Yeah. So although this move helps the 49ers, insulate themselves from the Juwan Jennings loss, and it seems like an upgrade in that position, I still don't know if they raised themselves. About 2 weeks ago, I think we both agreed that at the best, I don't know how to phrase that properly. I think that the 49ers are third in their division right now, with the Cardinals below them. And I don't think, if you compare not just what the 49ers have done so far, but what the Rams have done with their additions. And even with the small drop-offs that the Seahawks have had, I still don't think that the 49ers have raised their position with this addition.
Yeah.
Comments are leading us into our next topic. And actually, before I answer the Trent Williams specific, I will read Observe says, we sure solidified our offensive line with Evans, right? Clearly being sarcastic, but the 49ers did go get an offensive tackle in Vederian
Lowe.
Yeah, Lowe. I never knew. I was like, Lowe? Because there's an E at the end of it. This was a backup for the Patriots last year, starter the year prior to that. Tom, how do you feel about this addition? What I gathered from online people talking about him is it's a two-year deal. He was a backup for the Patriots, and he has long arms. I don't know if in order to talk about the addition of Lowe, if we need to put in the context that there was also a report today that the 49ers have been lowballing Trent Williams on his renegotiation for the contract that they gave him, but then don't want to pay him, and he wants guarantees and an extension. So that's a whole mess. They could even be open to trading him to the Chiefs, which makes me, as an emotional fan, I know they're not in the division, but I hate it. So maybe we'll have a Trent Williams topic separate, but the context of Trent Williams might be important for us talking about the addition of Vederian. Although I don't think so, because I think this guy is more of a backup. But what was your impression?
Vederian Lowe is a swing tackle for them. And that's what they signed him for in terms of the money, 2 years, 12. And he's a backup. He has starting experience. He started in 24 in New England, and he started some in 25. So, he's okay, but he's not great. And so he's somebody that, in terms of the PFF grading system, he's the 63rd ranked tackle out of 89. So you're getting a guy that's basically in the bottom third. But he's young, and you can try to coach him up. He's 26. So we'll see what they do with him. But I don't think in any way is this, well, we've got our Trent replacement now, we can just let him walk. No. He's the backup, and they needed a swing tackle. So it is a good move for that. It's not a good move for a starter. He's not.
Why was this on the Niners priority list at all? It's one of the, only two moves.
Because it's needed. They didn't have a swing tackle. Okay. Austin Pleasance is what he is. I think that Lowe is a better player than Pleasance, but we'll see. I just think that they're addressing a need, and by doing this, they can try to tell themselves, "Oh, we're adding pressure on Trent to sign." Nah, Trent knows better than that. He knows that this guy is not a replacement for him. So the game of chicken begins between Parag and Trent.
Yeah. Apparently we'll talk about Lowe some more, but apparently in the chat there's breaking news. The Cardinals signed Kendrick Bourne. I don't care. I think Kendrick Bourne seems like a fun energy guy. Did he even get the ball in the final couple games? I don't think so. He made a couple good catches with our
Mac Jones. When he was with Mac Jones, they made a good connection because they had a pass together.
Yeah.
But are they really losing that much by losing Kendrick Bourne? No.
And I don't think the Cardinals are gaining that much, to be fair.
No.
And that's not he's never been, a number one starting caliber wide receiver, and now he's on the back end of his career. So I wish him nothing but the best of luck. Seems like a cool guy, but I'm not, this doesn't make me go, oh, the Cardinals, or oh no, the Niners. Just news. But thanks for telling us. More with Vederian Lowe. Tom, the 49ers need to sign Trent Williams, in my opinion, and they also have to draft offensive linemen. Does this move make them feel like there's less pressure to do either of those things? I don't think so. But
I
then
don't think it changes anything, really. All it does is fill the need at starting or at a swing tackle, which was something they needed coming in. I don't think any of this is a reaction to Trent.
okay.
But in terms of, you think, in terms of on the field, they need to keep Trent, but it's who holds the power. That used to be Kyle, that used to be John, but after the Ayuk situation, it's now Parag, and that makes this about money. And therefore, I think what Parag is going to do is what he has done in the past. A player asks for too much money, they trade him for a draft pick, and then they use the first round pick to replace the departed player. That's what they did with Trent Brown. Yeah, they did that with Trent Brown and took Mike McGlinchey. They did that with DeForest Buckner and took Javon Kinlaw. So the history is that that's their reaction. That's their response. They kick a guy out for too much money and draft his replacement in the first. And I think that that's probably what's going to go down here because Parag holds the cards, not Kyle and John.
That would be horrible to not have like an intermission year for that player and just go, we just got Mike. Their moves never make, like, I feel like they make every move independent from the next. Do you know what I mean? And
there needs to be a coherent, holistic plan for the entire team. There's not. And each one is kind of treated as its own silo. And so within the Trent silo, because Parag holds the power, my guess is Parag is going to choose money, and therefore Trent goes.
I hope you're wrong. I mean, I see.
Me too. They need him, but
they need him.
They don't care. Parag doesn't care about on the field. Parag cares about the money. That's why he's Jed's right-hand guy. He's the money guy.
What's annoying, too, is that I feel like the biggest argument against signing Trent, I guess, Parag's would be the money, but for fans would probably be the age. But it's like, then you go sign Mike Evans, like, and you sign.
You're trying to have it make sense.
All in, right? Like Mike Evans is only coming here because he thinks there's an opportunity to like chase the Super Bowl here. Apparently it's not if it's not for money. Like, it frustrates me. Like, either completely rebuild, get younger, do not go sign a player like Mike Evans, invest in your draft picks, get younger free agents, and then trade Trent Williams because you're going, this is a full restructure. We're doing, this is the plan now. But they always have their toes dipped in like, this is our offense, Christian McCaffrey, Mike Evans, and George Kittle. And you're like, okay, well, those guys are all 80. So you must be going all in and hoping that health works out and that you win now. And then it's like, oh, but we're going to trade our offensive lineman because he's too old. And it's like, I guess, but why are you not applying that logic to, like, either apply it or don't apply it? I don't even care if you don't apply it, but just make a decision. Are you going all in or are you starting over? Because doing half and half hasn't worked. And they've been doing half and half for like 6 years now.
Right. Well, what does Kyle say is his top priority, what he learned most from his father? Staying employed. What is Kyle's moves? Staying employed. They're all now moves. Now, you're saying, oh, well, they go all in because Mike Evans is 33. No, it's Kyle staying employed. That's the motivation. And therefore, now moves because that helps him succeed this year. You want to see a commitment to a future and a vision, but there's no one setting a vision for this team. And part of that is because neither Kyle nor John have an extension, and so they're going to focus on the now only. And that's the moves they've made. In terms of Trent, because they don't have the power to make the decision on Trent, it's Parag's call. And so Parag has his own mountain. It's only money. And Kyle and John have their mountain. It's the field and competing this year. So there's no connection between those two.
Yeah.
You get Parag doing his thing, Kyle and John doing their thing. And as a result, you've got, we're going to let Trent go because he wants too much money, but we're going to sign Mike Evans because he helps us right now. And that's how it makes sense because everybody has their own mountain. Yeah. And all that ultimately goes down to Jed. You need to have a single mountain And the only way you can get a single mountain is by having an outside GM with talent evaluation skills who sets the vision. Instead, you get multiple visions, multiple agendas, and you get what we've just saw today.
Yeah. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Oh, it's very frustrating. Yeah.
Terradome is saying they're setting up for an all LA Super Bowl with the Chargers and the Rams. I don't know. I haven't seen the moves the Chargers have made today. I know they've made some good moves this offseason. I think adding Mike McDaniels to their offensive as an offensive play caller is going to be really helpful with hopefully opening up some more stuff for Justin Herbert, getting the run game going so it's not all on his shoulder, getting play action going so that when he does throw, those throws can be more impactful and it's not like the opposing defense knows exactly what's happening. So maybe not today, but in general, I think the Chargers have had a good offseason. But I don't know if I believe in them that much. With LA, I think you're right. I mean, they were neck and neck with the Seahawks last year. Some of those matchups that they had, you feel like if they played them 10 times, it's not necessarily that the Seahawks would have won every time. The two teams seemed very close. And it happened the way it happened, and the Seahawks won. But I told this to Tom, and I think Tom and I agreed when there was the NFC Championship last season, February that just happened, or January that just happened. I said whoever won that game, I anticipated was going to win the Super Bowl, similar to back in the old days with the Cowboys and the 49ers having their NFC Championship game, and everyone felt like that was the real Super Bowl. That's how
same thing.
Yeah, and LA's only improved. So yeah, I think they're at least attempting to give themselves that advantage.
The Rams have improved and Seattle has regressed so far. Let's see what happens through the rest of free agency and the draft. The thing in the Rams' favor is they've got the 13th pick in this draft on top of everything else. So they can add Mekhi Lemon or whoever else comes along. But that would be my guess for them, is that they're probably looking at receiver now. They've got their two DBs. And so
that's a team that's actually going
Lemon would fit in really well. You would have basically two Pukas, and that would be tough to deal with.
Yeah.
So now we'll see. In terms of the Chargers, I agree with Terradome that basically it's Rams-Chargers right now, barring injury. And we'll see how the injuries go. That's the thing with the Rams, is if for whatever reason Matthew Stafford goes down, they're done. But they're putting all of their eggs in their basket for this year, and the Super Bowl's at SoFi. So it all makes sense. It all connects.
Yeah. And I think like Matthew Stafford seems to be, work slowly and surely on his way out. I'm not, trying to retire him early, but I imagine if they won the Super Bowl this year, he might retire. And it feels like they intend on, using every last bit of him. He won the MVP last year and was playing at a very, very high level. So might as well. That team, whether you agree or like them or not, the thing that I can appreciate about what they do in their off seasons is they reflect on the previous year. They point out their weaknesses. They fill their weaknesses, and they have a cohesive plan. They've had years where they were rebuilding, and it was pretty clear that's we gave away all our picks to go win a Super Bowl. We're going to have 2 down years. Hey, now we got some guys that can go win now. We're adding to this to go win now. They seem to have cohesive plans. I'm not saying it works every single year, but it doesn't seem like they're confused on what they're doing ever.
Well, and why? Because they have a great GM.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the takeaway that Jed needs, is look around the league at the teams that are doing well. Great GMs. Seattle, Schneider. Philadelphia, Howie Roseman. Kansas City, Brett Veach. Rams, Les Snead. Those are the teams that have won the recent Super Bowls. All of them have a great GM and control the team with a single vision, great talent evaluators who know how to build that team and get them to the promised land. The Niners, because you're spreading the wealth like this and you've got these internal struggles of who holds the power now, you get what we have right now. It's inconsistent. It's a little out there. Foot in here, Nostradamus, we'll see. And I'm just snapshot in time right now. I think Rams Chargers make sense, but Let's see what else happens in the draft and free agency. But I like where both the LA teams are headed right now, provided that they can stay healthy.
Yeah. I agree that with Julie, that she said she's always liked Stafford. I think he was, very underrated with the Lions, and I was happy for him. As I'm not a Rams fan, but I feel like he was stuck in Detroit for so long, and it's also nice that Detroit has had their resurgence largely due to that trade, and they got so many picks back, and then they have a good GM there, so they utilize them correctly. But yeah, moving on to the 49ers, disjointed lack of plan and, seemingly fumbling into what moves they're going to make and not make. And once again, when I'm saying that, that doesn't mean Tom and I dislike some of these moves. You can say Mike Evans is an upgrade over Jennings, and that's a good addition.
Sure is.
But how does that go with your goal of getting younger and healthier? Does that make sense? Like, just as
Yeah. Well, it needs to be strategically coherent.
Yeah.
And they don't have that.
You can criticize the like structure of something, the way that they're going about something, without it meaning you dislike the player or that particular move. So I want to make that clear, because I think Tom and I both think that Mike Evans, when healthy, is a good player, but we both also kind of roll our eyes at the fact that we have to once again talk about a player that we have to preference when healthy because of age. And on that note, that transitions us into some rumors that I think are just popping up because this player is now available and used to be on the 49ers. But the Broncos let go of Dre Greenlaw. Do you know why they let him go? Because he did not play enough games for them. Why? Because he was injured. Great player when healthy. Now, because he's available, some people are wondering if the 49ers should bring him in. I guess it's also important, because we don't want to be disingenuous, for us to say that in general, a lot of players that are available in free agency, like, obviously these aren't rookies out of college. They're going to be a little bit older. And sometimes your foundational starting players, when we say younger and healthier, at least I think we both are meaning we want the majority of the 49ers starters and players that they are relying on to consistently be there week after week. We want those guys to be hopefully younger, faster, and healthier. We're aware that to make up 53 players on a team, there's going to be backup players that are a little more injury prone or older. But the hope is those aren't the guys that you're relying on to, make the biggest impact for you. So with the Dre Greenlaw thing, it annoys me because he's obviously not younger, or he's actually younger than you would imagine. Because I feel like we've been talking about him so long, he kind of seems older, but he's not young and he is injury prone. But potentially you could get him for the veteran minimum, and maybe then it's worth it. How do you feel about?
I don't know about veteran minimum, but I do think that it's a near certainty that the Niners are going to talk to him.
Okay.
And that they're probably going to try to bring him back. Part of the thinking isn't just Dre. It's that the combination of Dre and Fred is greater than the sum of the parts, because they played well together and know each other so well that those two playing together is a force multiplier in and of itself. And then that's something they have to weigh. Now, will Raheem value Dre as much as, say, Robert Saleh would? Saleh would be all over getting Dre back. Raheem Morris may not, but Raheem likes to blitz, and Dre can be an effective blitzer when healthy. It's what's your assessment of where he's at physically now? Does he have the same level of speed and violence, or has he lost a step because of all the injuries? And if he returns to the 49ers, are we going to get back into the same issues of, can Dre get healthy? Now, is this staff, is this facility something that Dre can overcome to get back to the player he once was? They have to make that assessment. But I think that culturally, the team would embrace bringing Dre back. Fred would love it.
Yeah.
and Fred knows what it would mean to him. Dre makes Fred a much better player.
They
So
do
I
look
think that's something they're going to definitely look at. I don't know if it's going to be, vet minimum, but I think that they're going to be pursuing him. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe Greenlaw at this stage of his career, and now that he had the opportunity to go be the number one guy in Denver, maybe now he'd be more not that he was ever disgruntled, at least outwardly, but maybe internally there'd be like less of a struggle with him, because I feel like a big reason he went to Denver is he wanted to try to be that number one guy. And at this stage, maybe he feels like, I'm older, that's a lot of pressure on me and on my body that I don't seem to be able to take anymore. I'd rather go play with my friends and in an environment I'm comfortable with and be able to share that responsibility. And maybe that would feel better to him this year than it did last year. Because it seemed like last year, the reason he went to Denver was he wanted to give himself that opportunity. And this is kind of shitty to say, but it didn't work out right. And maybe now he's like,
Could
okay,
be.
okay.
But yeah, as Julie points out, Greenlaw decided against returning, but I think that a lot of that was emotional in that he didn't feel respected, that the Niners only ponied up with the money to match Denver once Denver had made the offer. And Dre was probably of the opinion of, why didn't you offer me that from the beginning? If you did, I would have signed and stayed. So that emotional residue, for lack of a better term, is still there. But because he went to Denver and it didn't work, he's looking to resuscitate his career. He knows that he can succeed here playing with Fred. And he and Fred and their families are, best friends. And so to them, it's family. And I think that that's a powerful pull for him as well, of returning to Santa Clara, if not for the Niners, for Fred and for their families. And I think that's part of it. And yeah, as JM says, circumstances change. I think that Julie is right that respect could be lost, but at the same time, I think that Drake can have other feelings about it, that in the moment, what he was seeking most from the Niners was respect.
Yeah.
Know that I am who I am apart from Fred. I am a great linebacker in this league. You guys need to recognize that. You should have paid me, and you didn't until Denver forced your hand.
Yeah.
I don't like that. So I think that's going to be in the back of his head. But at the same time, Julie, I think that the pull of Fred Warner is enough for him to decide, it's still the best place for me and my family to return. So I think that emotional pull of Fred is greater than the emotional push of the Niners didn't respect me when I was seeking them.
Yeah. I would now, you did, when I said the vet minimum, do you think he would get more than that from other teams? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's still a valuable piece when healthy. So I don't think that teams would lowball him to that extent. And I think that it would also be a mistake for the Niners, given that.
Yeah.
All that we just talked about on money and respect, you don't say, okay, Dre, come back. Here's vet minimum.
Got it.
Click. You're going to get dial tone if you do that.
Yeah. It's like this. We just were trying to overcome that. Do you think that it'd be worth it to bring him back, knowing that we do have gaps at linebacker, huge gaps at linebacker, and that we probably want to get younger there? But as you and I have talked about, I think this was your hypothesis, and it's kind of been proven right. A couple of years ago, you said usually coming out of college, linebackers can take 2 to 3 years to adjust, unlike some wide receivers in certain positions where it's more easily transferable. Maybe in that aspect, it's worth it then to invest in free agency for the linebackers.
Yeah, well, so free agency, you get that addition, but you don't necessarily get the athleticism. So in this draft, it's deep at linebacker. There's a lot of good linebackers at this draft. Free agency is also deep. And so the rumor is that Raheem would like to have Caden Ellis, who was the blitzing linebacker for the Falcons last year. And he's one of the best blitzing linebackers in the league. He had a 60% success rate of creating at least a pressure and possibly a sack every time he went to blitz. 60% pressure rate is pretty high. So if you got somebody that you believe in that much, then okay. But Ellis picked up a lot of his stats in terms of the sacks on only a few select teams that were weak in the offensive line. He took advantage. So you have to weigh, who is this player now at 31? Can we still get him? My guess would be Raheem values him because he produced for him. So I think that that's a possibility in free agency. Leo Chenal from the Chiefs is another player that is a very good blitzer. I think that he might cost a little bit more, though. And then the draft, there's a ton of guys, and there's a lot of people that they talk to. So, we'll see. But I would expect that what they'll probably do is something like bring back Dre, take a look at Caden Ellis, bring back maybe some of the guys that were veteran pickups late in the year last year, like Kendricks or Wallow, and then make one pick for a linebacker in the draft.
It's interesting. I like that you said we have to think of Raheem Morse is the D coordinator now. So he might value different things and different people because of his personal connections than the 49ers have in the past. So I like that nod to the former blitzing linebacker. And I feel like the 49ers might utilize that since they do struggle to get pressure right now. I know Nick Bosa will be back. I don't know if Michael Williams is going to get pressure right away. I think that's still a skill set that he's going to have to learn once he's been healthy. So it might be helpful to have different ways to simulate pressure.
Yeah, they're going to need that, and that's something that Raheem looks to do. Saleh is one of the least frequent blitzers in the league, and Raheem is somebody that believes it a great deal in creating pressure to create turnovers. So there's two things that he's going to look for. He's going to look for more pressure, be it from the front four or from the linebackers, and he's going to look for ball skills in the secondary to get those picks and force fumbles.
Benjamin Albright, do you know that?
Yeah.
He said regarding Dre Greenlaw that he would say his injury kept him from being where he needed to be with the Broncos, and he was not a personality fit, which makes reuniting with the 49ers more increasingly more likely, since although he was more of a secondary player to Fred Warner, he felt personally comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's true. There's a comfort zone for Dre in returning.
Yeah.
And he knows that he would be embraced by the coaching staff and his teammates.
Yes. Tom, what moves outside of what the 49ers have made so far are you hoping that the 49ers go after next? I've seen a reporter just recently today suggest going and getting Eric Armstead. These are moves that I'm not. Yeah. That was my reaction. That was my reaction as well. I think that
they let him go for a reason.
If you didn't win a Super Bowl with them the first time, like no Eric Armstead, no bringing back Debo. At least get younger and faster. And if you're not, and you're going to pick up free agents, at least try new ones, because it didn't work with those ones before.
Well, right. And beyond that, Michael Williams was drafted to replace Eric Armstead. He's the new guy. So, bringing back Eric Armstead when you've got Michael doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I don't think that'll happen at all.
Yeah, and it doesn't give him much confidence.
Right. And it's telling Michael, we've already given up on you.
Yeah.
No.
Could you, because you're probably better at explaining this, is that same logic, can that be applied to Ricky Pearsall? Like, you brought Mike Evans in, that looks bad for Ricky, because at one point, I assumed that because you spent a first-round pick on him, you wanted Ricky to be your number one? Or is that not exactly fair? Because you talked about X and Y, like they kind of play different positions as well.
Yeah. In Ricky's case, I think that he would know and would probably say, I'm best used as a Z receiver. I'm not an X. I'm too small. Yeah. And that's true. So the best way to protect Ricky and make him more available going forward is to play him in the slot as the Z receiver. So I don't think Ricky would have any objection to that.
Got it.
Evans being the number one target, you also can't say, well, you should throw me the ball more than this guy that's going to make the Hall of Fame. I mean, no.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's a concern.
If anything, it's kind of like get healthy and prove that you should get the ball more.
Right. And he does that best in the slot.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Moving on from that, I feel like we've been relatively negative, but we're not trying to. We're just discussing the moves that have happened. But for some positive news, this is smaller, but it is good. The 49ers have locked up Eddie Pinheiro, their kicker. I think it's kind of funny to talk about kicker news because people are like, it doesn't matter. But as a 49er fan who's been scarred, you guys watching, we've been scarred by the Jake Moody's of the world. And when you've looked around the league in the last couple of years, we saw the Rams had critical special teams mistakes. A couple of years ago when the 49ers faced the Packers, they had some critical special teams mistakes in games that ended up taking those two teams out of the playoffs when they were, on Super Bowl runs. I'm not saying they were going to win the Super Bowl, but that seemed possible for them to at least chase. So I think we're learning more and more as 49er fans. No, special teams is really important. And when your kicker is making all your kicks and you don't have to close your eyes, that's positive, especially in a Kyle Shanahan offense where sometimes he's not as aggressive and just making the field goal really matters, especially with defenses seemingly getting better and it being so difficult to score points. You need someone you can rely on to, if you miss the third down or the fourth down, okay, I can kick it. I'm really happy about the move. I know it seems silly.
Absolutely.
4 years, 17 up to 17 million, only 10 million guaranteed. It's not a huge amount of money. And I think I'm happy about it. How do you feel?
Me too. Oh, I love it. Yeah. This is somebody you can count on, like Robbie Gould, where you just say, okay, get out there and make it. And he does. Yeah. And 59-yarder. And nobody thought that was possible. And so that's his longest kick career. He did last year. This is a great move to keep Eddie Pinheiro. And I'm sure for Kyle, it's a relief because after what he went through with Moody, to have Pinheiro of a guy that's just automatic, great. So, and it seems clear to me that having Brent Boyer elevates their awareness that special teams is important and they can make a difference because the special teams basically took them to 12-5 because Pinheiro made those kicks and the special teams were a lot better. And it allowed them to play the style of ball they did in terms of bend, don't break on defense was enabled in part by the special teams.
Yes. One of the better things they did last offseason, and I think Saleh had a big to do with this, was bringing back Saleh, who then seemingly was the catalyst to bringing Boyer here. And I'm really glad that he stayed with the Niners because I was worried about that
lucky
transition.
Yeah. Fortunately, Tennessee has a legend as their special teams coach. And so that's why you don't replace that guy. And that allowed the Niners to keep Boyer. If it was somebody that was just sort of a run-of-the-mill special teams guy, he would have taken Boyer with him. That was my fear, too.
Yeah. Moving away from that, I didn't even know if I was going to discuss this because my reaction is like so shut it down. I don't even want to think about it, talk about it, discuss, let my mind go there. But I guess it has been talked about from other teams. A Giants reporter came out and said that the Giants have been calling the 49ers on Fred Warner and that they've been at least open to taking the call. Have you heard about this rumor? How do you feel? I think
I've read it.
Fred Warner is more important than Kyle Shanahan and John. Like he's
the team. He is the 49ers on the field.
He's the anchor. He's the rock.
Yeah, he's the rock. He's the leader. He's the culture setter of this team. And you cannot and will not trade Fred Warner. I don't think there's any chance that they do. This was a rumor that was picked up that was apparently floated by Ricky Scoops at one point that the Giants were kicking the tires on Fred Warner. And then Ricky pivoted off of that and said, no, it's not Fred Warner. It's a guy in the AFC. And so it ended up being that all of this sort of grew a life of its own
Got it.
and became a
thought other
rumor that
people
wasn't really legit, but I don't think there's any credence to any of this.
Perfect.
Fred's the Niners. The Niners know they have to keep him and will.
That I didn't realize that it started from there. I thought that he should have been wasn't he supposed to delete his account? People were supposed to stop looking at what he said after he guaranteed that Ayuk was going to the Steelers like 27 times.
Well, he was right. He knew that the Niners had the deal in place with Ayuk, and he had it sourced that the Niners wanted to do it. The only thing Ricky didn't have was Kyle.
Yeah.
Stopping all of it. So, yeah, I don't use the Ayuk thing as a way to shoot down Ricky. I think it confirms that he has sources. Got
it. And other reporters I am seeing have reported for NFL Network, Jane Slater. She responded to the rumor about Fred Warner and the 49ers taking calls on him. And apparently whoever her insider is said, no, that's not possible. So they shut it down. I think Fred's going to be back week 1. I think I didn't even really want to go there. I just felt like it was necessary to at least talk about in case there was some shock that did happen, and I wanted it to at least be covered on here, whether or not we thought.
I wouldn't read anything into it. Fred is a mainstay, and they have to keep him, and they will.
Yes. JM says that they let go of Kendrick Bourne and Jennings. They need to add another weapon. Well, I think to cover.
Yeah, they'll draft
Jennings, one. They did Mike Evans, and I think Tom and I have talked about it earlier. They're gonna definitely add someone in the draft. I don't think the move is to go bring in a guy like Deebo Samuel or anything like that.
Hopefully not, but we'll see. Yeah, the key is that the player that Kyle would need as a wide receiver too that can also play in the slot is probably the most available in the draft. There's a lot of players that fit that profile.
Yeah. Hold on. He said didn't scare a player of Mike Evans' caliber. I'm not exactly sure what that was going for. My thing with even if they did go out and get another guy in free agency to be more of a Kendrick Bourne backup level type guy, that guy is not Deebo. Deebo has he's like Cam Newton. He can't be a backup, and he can't be a backup seemingly in general. I feel like he'd be disgruntled on any team, but definitely not with the 49ers, because Kyle and Deebo have a not weird relationship, but they have a more than a football and football coach and player relationship where Kyle seems to really feel the need to please Deebo Samuel. And so when he's on the team, Kyle will put Deebo's happiness and gripes and wants ahead of what's best for the offense. So you just have to.
That's my biggest fear.
Things don't even happen.
No, I agree with you 100%, Ashley, and it's a great point that Kyle will overreact to what Deebo says and does. Deebo will not get enough targets and complain about it, and the next week Kyle will feed him 8 targets. You can't do that. And then in those games where Deebo is fed, they lose. So, no. If you want to win games, don't bring Deebo back. And I hope that they look at this draft and say, we can add players that can really help us who are just going to get started, as opposed to somebody that's already on the decline like Deebo. Yeah, his best years are behind him, and Kyle overreacts. So don't do something that makes you act in a way that hurts the team. I hope they don't sign Deebo, and we'll see.
Yeah. JM clarified when I said I didn't understand the scaring Mike Evans. He said the substation didn't scare Mike Evans away is what he was going for, because there were rumors that with the substation maybe free agents wouldn't want to sign here. Yeah, I think that it's a big enough deal that I believe that Jed York and the front office should be paying people to show the players their studies, because there's been so many players on the team now that are clearly vocal about at least thinking it could be a problem, whether they 100% think so or not, that to me, in order for your players to feel comfortable, you should assure them that you're like, this is why. Jed at one point laughed it off. And my thought was not that it's impossible, that it's a laughable hypothesis. Maybe it is laughable. Show why it's laughable. Prove to your players.
Yeah, prove it. Right.
You know,
but and so why does Jed not do that? Because what's Jed's sole motivation in all of this?
Not getting
Avoid lawsuits.
Yeah.
And therefore, no action will be taken, and he'll just try to laugh it off because that's the best way that he can avoid a lawsuit.
Yeah.
If he has a study and the study says this is real, lawsuit. If they move to another practice facility after a study, lawsuit. You know, everything Jed is doing and saying is about avoiding the lawsuit, period, end of story.
Yeah.
And therefore, he's not going to do a damn thing.
Yeah. I think that we've talked about all the moves being made. What I will say, because I know my dad is a big Kendrick Bourne fan, and we kind of skated over the importance, and I agree with our conclusion, but I do want to give him credit. I think he was a free agent when he was initially in the 40, or not a free agent, but an undrafted free agent coming into the NFL. He's been in the NFL for 9 seasons, made a ton of money. Seems like a good guy, and good for him. I'm glad that he signed with the Cardinals.
Yeah, self-made. And that's always something that's very commendable.
Yeah.
My concern with Kendrick Bourne is he's best with Mac Jones.
Yeah.
How many games is Brock going to miss?
Yeah.
He's probably not going to miss as many games as he did this year. So
what are you really getting
with Kendrick Bourne?
I bet he'll be better on the Cardinals. And what my dad was saying, like, you don't give him credit. I think certain wide receivers just work better with certain quarterbacks. Kendrick Bourne and Mac Jones had years and years of experience before together. But 2, I think their skill sets go together better. And I think a reason to be excited about Mike Evans, as Tom said, he holds on the football and he comes down with the football. So Brock can just put it we've seen Brock do a lot of those. I'm not saying that it's great that he does this, but sometimes he's running to the side because the offensive line sucks and he's running to the side and you see him buying time and he'll kind of throw a ball up there. He used to do this with Ayuk sometimes back when Ayuk was on the team and stuff. And Ayuk would have, sometimes he'd have drops, but a lot of times he'd have these amazing catches. Mike Evans is like that. He has excellent hands. And if you put it within a certain vicinity of him, he's coming down with the football. And that no doubt will happen at some point this year. And you will, as a fan, feel like, I'm glad that I have that player. Because the 49ers have had a player, 49ers have had sketchy wide receiver hands for the last couple, at least last year.
Yeah, or at least hands that aren't nearly as reliable as somebody like Mike Evans.
Yeah, I mean, he's a
4% career drop rate speaks for itself. But also because he's 6'5", his catch radius is huge. Anything near him, he can get his hands on. And that's part of why he wins so many 50-50 balls, because he's taller and longer, and therefore he can get the ball. And he's got great hands. What you want from a receiver, first and foremost, is he can make a catch away from his body. Evans does that. And that's something that can really help Brock, because Purdy is going to look for 50-50 balls, especially when he's throwing up to Juwan on 3rd down or throwing to Ayuk in a crowd. You can do the same thing with Evans, and he's going to succeed.
Yeah. My dad is saying it's not about Evans, it's about Pearsall. Okay. I mean, they're both going to be on the team. Ricky Pearsall, when he was healthy and on the field, looked good. Ricky's problem wasn't that when he was on the field, he looked bad. It was that he wasn't on the field enough. This is a make or break year for Ricky. He's, his rookie contract is expiring soon. And I think Mike Evans is going to want the ball a shit ton. And the way that Kyle or whoever calling the offensive plays are going to look at it is, Ricky, if you want the ball, you better be healthy and you better get open. And if not, it's going to go to Evans. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And if, you're Ricky, hopefully you feel like I can step up to the plate and earn my catches, which from what we've seen of him on the field when he's healthy, he can do. I know he kind of went on a keeping the receipts thing when the season got over. To me, it's all about health. It's not about skill set when playing. So I'm glad to have both of them on the team. I hope both of them can stay healthy. If they can, I'm going to feel pretty confident. My issue is the faith and health.
Yeah, the availability has to improve for Ricky or he's gone.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And the thing that will help is that by upgrading the wide receiver room, the defense is going to have to pay a lot more attention now to Mike Evans and whoever they draft. And so Pearsall is going to get less attention. That's going to help him.
Open him up. Yeah.
I just hope that he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
Is Ricky Pearsall just too small for the NFL? He might be. Yeah. And this year we're going to find out if that's true or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the offense, hopefully, if they're healthy, being a little bit more effective, that's more rest for our defense. And then they're not tiring out as much and not giving up, bigger plays later on in the game, which is kind of what happens when you put it all on the defense to not let the opposing team score more than 10. It's like, that's not necessarily sustainable in the NFL.
Yeah, all of this for complementary football feeds into the entire equation. Yeah. And so for Pearsall, it's just, this is your do or die year. You either stay available and you contribute, or you get hurt and goodbye. It's one or the other. It's not anything in between.
Yeah. Benjamin says, I think Tom is right on Pearsall really helping out, or it will really help having a wide receiver out there to spread out the defense. Totally. You have to think, like, when even Brandon Ayuk, when he had so much success, they got him paid. Debo was on that team. They've always had usually like two really good wide receivers and then a good running back that has helped spread out defenses and allowed them to spread out the football to different players depending on who's getting double teamed. And then last year and the year before, because of so many injuries and those guys getting older and less effective, it felt like opposing defenses could really narrow in on one guy. And if that guy got injured or wasn't good that game, you were fucked. So hopefully this is, makes it a more even team. But I think we're going to leave off here on that. Omar.
One thing I want to add, Ashley, if I can quickly, the NFL came out with its comp picks for this draft.
Tell me.
The Niners added one pick. So today they added pick 139 for the Niners. So now they've got one extra draft pick at the end of the fourth. They used to have 133 and 138 as the only fourth round comp picks. The league added a third one and gave them 139. So now they've got an extra pick in the end of the fourth.
Okay. Do you know what they got that? Like who that was for?
No, it's part of a formula where it's the collective goes into whatever the league decides in terms of where the pick is distributed. It's not a 1-to-1 where you say this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. They do that. They do that sometimes, but they don't do that all the time. And so I'm guessing that they looked at who the Niners lost in toto and said that they deserve a little bit more compensation, therefore 139.
Yeah. I love that. And the reason I was confused is because I remembered if they hung out in Sala for one more year, they were going to get comp picks, but then they didn't. So I was like, oh, where'd that come from? I didn't realize.
Yeah, because the comp pick formula for losing a coach is 2 years. Yeah. Humaro asks in the chats, what happens if we trade Trent? Yeah, I don't like it either. But I think that what we're looking at is that the history of Parag has been when he boots a player because he thinks he's too expensive, they draft the replacement at that position in the first round. And therefore, they're going to be looking at tackle at 27, and it becomes who's there then. Yeah. And my hope would be that it's Max Ahanachor from Arizona State, who's a project and who plays too high a pad level, but is a phenomenal athlete, ran 4.940, and carries his weight really well and has a lot of power. He's somebody that could be a great player down the road. I think that's somebody they could look at. Caleb Lomu is another one that they could potentially look at who might be there at 27, but they didn't send a scout to BYU Utah, which shows that they weren't interested. So we're going to have to see what they do with 30 visits.
Yeah.
If Lomu comes in for a 30 visit, they're interested. Otherwise, no.
Maybe they're trying to fake them out. Don't sometimes they do that?
Yeah, but not setting a scout. That's faking them out to such a degree that it's overkill.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I'm hoping to not even go there. Although I want them to draft an offensive lineman. I'm just hoping that the offensive lineman can learn for a year from Trent and that they can do something maybe similar to like a 2-year deal where, to me, they fucked themselves when sorry for the swear word, but they gave him this contract. It's their bad. Like they shouldn't. Anyways, they either should have drafted someone last year so they could just move on from him this year, or since they didn't, I think that they put themselves in a precarious situation where they need to draft someone this year and have them develop behind Trent for at least a year before actually trying to eat whatever dust they need to from moving on from Trent. But
right. But that requires forward planning. It requires thinking beyond the current season. And that's not what Kyle does. Kyle is about the now only. And you see that proven out in not having a transition plan from Trent.
Yeah.
That the last time they took somebody in the draft at tackle was Jalen Moore in the 5th round in 2021. Is the last time they drafted a tackle. Yeah. If you force that on Howie Roseman, he would shoot you. It's just, there's no way. So yeah, they only have themselves to blame. They kick the can down the road 1 year too many.
Yeah.
And now they are in this situation. But because Kyle has lost power to Parag, my opinion is that Parag is going to choose money and he's going to send Trent packing.
Sending him, Tom, it blows up your season. It makes the Mike Evans. Right now, I think the Mike Evans move is like a B. Like, I don't think it's an A because he is older and whatever. If they move on Trent, the Mike Evans move is like every move that I hate them. Every move will be an F.
The Mike Evans move is a now move by Kyle to keep his job.
Which is why I think
letting Trent go is a now move by Parag.
But then you have to regrade all the other moves because those moves look idiotic because the plan doesn't add up.
And why doesn't the plan add up? Because Parag has his mountain, Kyle has his mountain, Lynch has his mountain. That all goes back to Jed. You need a GM, not 3. And right now, they got 3. And that's why you get this mess that's driving you nuts, and me, and everybody else that's a Niner fan. Would you get your act together and get in the same page, please? Not until there's one GM, one decision maker.
See, I think that we have some commenters. It's so interesting that
Thanks, Benjamin.
Front office seems to be really good at like controlling the narrative because fans have come away from this Trent Williams situation mad at Trent. The 49ers promised him this money and then went to him this offseason and said, will you take a pay cut just for fun? Imagine you at your job did that. You'd be like, what? No. Like,
yeah, especially when you're top 3 in your profession.
Yeah.
You know, Trent can point to it and say, according to PFF, I'm one of the 3 to 5 best left tackles in the league.
Yeah.
And you want me to take a discount because I'm 37 going on 38. No.
Yeah. I'm not saying like Trent. I guess I understand. I think fans are just like, you should do whatever's best for the team. But it's like the team is not doing what's best for you. And also what's best for the team is Trent being on the team. The 49ers should have known when they gave him this contract. Like they knew how old he was when they gave him that contract. They knew how long the contract was. So they knew he was going to be at this age. They could have structured it differently so that they paid more money earlier so that this money wasn't expensive. Like it's not on Trent to like figure out the money. That's on them. They just knew that they could do this and then control the narrative and either cut it. They did this with Eric Armstead. This is not like a news strategy for them. And by the way, Eric Armstead went on podcast after this. I'm not saying, I don't know how much I love Eric Armstead, but like from just a business perspective, with Kyle Juszczyk, with Eric Armstead, with other players, they have done this where they have backloaded the deal and then put the onus on the player to either take the pay cut or get cut and then made it the player's problem when really they were put in an impossible situation.
Yeah, well,
it makes sense
Still, what it comes down to is just not drafting a tackle, and that's on Kyle.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line in all of
you
this.
and I have been saying they need to draft
yeah, we've been saying it for years. And so they never did. They kicked the can, and here we are.
Yeah.
To your point, you knew this was coming. You knew he didn't have any guaranteed money left. You knew that Trent would ask for an extension with guaranteed money, paid top of the tackle market, guaranteed with a ton of signing bonus money. Trent, it's not like, oh, gee, Trent did this. Who knew? You did. You've seen this pattern before. You knew this was coming, and you wished it away. That's on them. That's not Trent's fault.
Teradum made a good comment. He said, too many chefs in the kitchen. And then I did want to shout out the super chat because we always appreciate super chats from Benjamin, who says, great analysis today. Thanks. I always feel like Tom comes with the deeper knowledge and facts, and I feel so grateful to be able to bounce off you.
Thanks, Ashley. That's very kind. But you set the table, you keep it flowing. So you contribute in a lot of ways too.
So next week, we will talk about even more moves. By then, will we know what's going on with Trent, or are they just going to wait?
In theory, it can last. The hard deadline is March 31st because Trent is due a roster bonus of $10 million on April 1st.
Got it.
And so that's when the Niners have to fish or cut bait. And Trent is saying, release me now so that I can participate in the free agent market. And the Niners, being the Niners, and especially Parag, we'll get around to it when we feel like it. We're going to squeeze you and see if you are then willing, through market pressure, to bend to our will.
This is
and my thing with Parag would be, and how often has that tactic worked for you? Yeah. You really think that Trent is going to do that? No. So, my take on all this is trade Trent now because you'll get better trade offers now. And what's more important is getting something back. If you've decided you're going to move on now, because teams will offer more and more teams will offer, period.
Yeah.
If you wait, you're going to have fewer teams. Kansas City is reportedly interested, will probably offer less. And so it's Parag climbing his mountain his way, as opposed to what's the thing that I can do that would best serve the needs of the team. It's what you get back. If you decide Trent's asking for too much money, trade him now.
Yeah.
But Parag won't, because Parag wants to squeeze him. Thanks.
Tom, I'm really interested to see what happens. Some exciting news is I did get my plane ticket to go to the owners' meetings again.
Oh, cool.
This year. It's in Arizona this year. The last couple of years it's been in Florida. I'm going, I think it's on the 31st is the dinner where you get to talk with everyone. Jed York can call me an idiot because I yelled at him last time that he should have.
Drew Dahlman.
How
would you know that he can't hold that on you, Ashley? No way. Nobody saw that coming.
Still stood. But I'm excited to go and observe. It felt really eye-opening for me last year just to see people in their element, more from like a human perspective, to get an idea on kind of who felt powerful, who felt maybe more meek than I imagined, just like to get a vibe on like personalities.
Sure.
Not necessarily totally makes an impact on how they coach a team. It was just interesting for me from like a background level to be able to pick up which coaches seem to have like command, or owners seem to have commanding presence, more of a commanding presence versus the ones that didn't. And I remember I got to talk to you guys about that last time. Now, I did eventually have to delete that stream because apparently I divulged too much information. So this time I'm going to be more coy with the intel that I give you. But no, I had so much fun last time, and I'm very excited to go back and give you guys some updates from that. And then, Tom is always working on incredible articles, and there's going to be some great breakdowns. This draft is going to be really important for John Lynch if he's trying to save his career. Tom's kind of said, next year's draft is probably going to be the most impactful, not this one. But I think because there's so much pressure on this one, I feel very...
For Lynch, this is the most impactful because his career's on the line.
Yeah, I feel very interested.
But for the team, next year is the draft. That's the draft that decides their future.
And a good thing to keep in mind when you are looking at, the moves that happen throughout the week, if there's anything else, is whatever they don't do in free agency or whatever they do in free agency, that can shift what we hypothesize they're doing in the draft. So Tom and I have kind of gone over, I think, position by position group, what the 49ers needs are and players that we feel like are valuable. But if we say, we think they're going to, go after this position really early on, and then they go get a star player at that position, it might be less likely that they go attack that first thing in the draft. So that'll all be very interesting. And I'm excited to talk to you guys next week. As breaking news happens, I'll probably go live on this channel and do little video updates. So please make sure to give me a like and subscribe. Both of those things, I think comments, all that really help grow the channel, which I appreciate. And make sure to follow Tom. As you guys know, his knowledge is just irreplaceable for me, and his friendship, I feel the same way about. And then also make sure to read his articles. A lot of that you can find on Twitter, NinerCast, Tom Jensen on Twitter. Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Ashley. This was great.
Love
great
you.
Time as always. You led us well.
We've had like 4 comments really quick. I'm hovering over the end button, but what number is he going to wear? Not sure, but probably not 13, since that's
probably 4, because that's what he did in high school, and 1 + 3 is 4. That'd be my guess.
Ooh, I didn't get the 1 + 3. Look, Tom's so smart. We don't pay him the big bucks, and by that I mean nothing around here for no reason. But no, because of that, you guys all better go follow Tom on Twitter, because I appreciate and love him. Thank you. Love you, Tom. Catch you guys next week.